In this Writer's Toolbox video, I'll be discussing how to write a conclusion. Now before we begin, as always, it's really important that we understand context. The text in which I'll be focusing on in this video is Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. So the characters in Romeo and Juliet are Romeo Montague and Juliet Capulet, two teenagers from wealthy families who hate each other. The families hate each other. The setting is Verona in Italy in the 1300s. And in the play, Romeo and Juliet fall in love at a party, but they come from families who hate each other. Nevertheless, helped by Friar Lawrence, they marry in secret. Unfortunately, Romeo kills Juliet's cousin in a fight as he tries to get revenge for killing one of his friends, and because of that he must flee Verona, never to return. He's banished. Juliet's family try to make her marry another man called Paris, but she refuses, and so she plans to fake her death with the help of Friar Lawrence. Romeo hears that she's died, even though she's just faked it, so he goes there, he kills himself. Juliet wakes up, sees Romeo's dead body, and then she kills herself. It's very tragic. Now, William Shakespeare is probably the most famous playwright, and he lived during Elizabethan England, time in England under Queen Elizabeth. The play is written poetically, mostly in iambic pentameter, in either blank verse or rhyme verse. Shakespeare often alludes to Greco-Roman gods and goddesses. He references them. And the play is tragic with elements of humour, and it even mocks traditional tragedies a little bit. So that's a bit about Romeo and Juliet. Now, conclusions. Opposite to introductions, they start very specific and they leave quite vague. So you just flip the pyramid around. So when we restate the thesis, what we're looking to do is reword our thesis statement. We're not copying and pasting it from our paragraph, we are rewording it. Let's have a look what that might look like. So this is the thesis statement for my essay in the introduction. In Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare uses allusion in order to characterize characters, foreshadow what is to come, and show affection to other pieces of literature. I explain the what in black and the how or the why in purple. Now if I was to reword this, I might do something like this. As is evident, Shakespeare shows off his ability to characterize characters, foreshadow what is to come, and show affection to other pieces of literature through the use of allusion. So I've actually swapped around my what and my how or the why. One explains the other essentially. And I've included a short phrase at the beginning, as is evident from the evidence provided, as is clear from what has been shown, something like that. And yeah, we just swap it around, nice and easy. Let's have a look at another example. In his prolific play, Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare writes in iambic pentameter in order to intensify romantic or fiery scenes, distinguish class differences, and help lines be remembered easily. In the conclusion, I might write, it is clear that in order to create more romantic tone in scenes, distinguish between rich and poor characters, and help actors and the audience alike remember the lines, Shakespeare writes Romeo and Juliet in iambic pentameter. So what I've done again is I've swapped them around. As you can see here, my what at the beginning in my introduction suddenly moved to the end, and my how or the why comes first. I also have a phrase like it is clear, it can be seen, it is shown, it is evident. And then I've even changed a few of the words. So here I've put class differences, here I've written rich and poor, distinguish between rich and poor, and help lines be remembered easily, help actors and the audience alike remember the lines. So I've just changed some of the words. And that's what it is to restate a thesis statement. This will come in the introduction and this will come in the conclusion. Finally, in the introduction I've written, in Romeo and Juliet, the titular couple recite the lover's sonnet when meeting in Act 1, Scene 5, which reveals Juliet's naivety, Romeo's purer intentions, and their strong emotional connection. Rewording that, I might swap them round. All in all, through the lover's sonnet performed by Romeo and Juliet in Act 1, Scene 5, Juliet is revealed to be naive, Romeo pure, and both are shown to have a strong emotional connection. I've used the phrase here, all in all. And I've swapped how the how is presented. Here it's the what, but here I use the word through to show that this is how and this is what. Again, just restating it, different words. The next part of the conclusion, after you've done that, is summary. Now, a summary is to just basically summarize the ideas presented in your body paragraphs. These will be the claims of your bodies, the first sentences, the topic sentences. Okay? So all you've got to do is basically combine all of those in 1 to 2 sentences, no more than 3, because you shouldn't be giving specific evidence, you should just be summarizing the claims. You've already proved these claims in your body paragraph, so you don't need to give any evidence again. So let's have a look. I've restated my thesis statement at the top. As is evident, Shakespeare shows off his ability to characterise characters, foreshadow what is to come, and show affection to other pieces of literature through the use of allusion. Now, body 1 says characters are given biblical names or are likened to Greco-Roman gods, or characters from folktales to show their personalities or motives. Body 2. By comparing characters to Greco-Roman gods with similar fates, Shakespeare is able to foreshadow what will happen to these characters. And body 3, by referencing other poets and their works, Shakespeare pays respect to these people in Romeo and Juliet. These might just be the first sentences or the claims of each body paragraph. Now, I've put the first 2 into 1 sentence. By giving characters biblical names, the names of Greco-Roman gods, or the names of characters from folklore, Shakespeare not only reveals more about their personalities, but also foreshadows their end when compared to those with similar fates. Also, by alluding to such poems, stories, and their authors, Shakespeare pays tribute to such works. As you can see, I've summarised the claims of all 3 bodies in just 2 sentences there. The next one then. It is clear that in order to create a more romantic tone in scenes, distinguish between rich and poor characters, and help actors and the audience alike remember the lines, Shakespeare uses iambic pentameter. Body 1 says iambic pentameter and how it sounds like a heartbeat. Body 2 is about the upper classes speaking rhymed or blank verse, whereas lower classes speak in prose. And body 3, the rhythm helps actors learn lines and is more memorable for the audience. So I've just shortened and paraphrased the claims there. When I summarise, again I've done it in 2 sentences. I've written, as iambic pentameter has a very particular rhythm which mimics a heartbeat, it helps to intensify romantic scenes, but also helps actors remember their lines as they follow the rhythm. I have summarised body 1 and body 3 there. Moreover, by having lower class characters speak in prose as opposed to in iambic pentameter, it immediately sets them apart. There's body 2. Let's look at one more example then. All in all, through the lover's sonnet performed by Romeo and Juliet in Act 1, Scene 5, Juliet is revealed to be naive, Romeo pure, and both are shown to have a strong emotional connection. By only mimicking Romeo's words to compare the rhyme scheme, Juliet is unoriginal and revealed to be naive. That's what I write about in my first body paragraph. In body 2, Romeo's use of religious imagery shows his intentions are much purer with Juliet, as opposed to how he speaks about other women. And body 3, by each having their own stanza, then completing the third together and sharing the couplet, they're shown to complete one another. So I summarise the 3 bodies, this time in 3 sentences. Juliet and Romeo each have their own stanza, but then share the third and the couplet, indicating that they complete each other and have a strong connection. Added to this, Romeo's use of religious imagery shows much purer intentions. However, Juliet is unable to have original words to rhyme with Romeo, and copies him, thus highlighting her immaturity. I've just summarised all 3 claims. I'm not copying and pasting, I'm rewording and summarising. That's the restating the thesis, that's the summary. The last thing, and this is probably the most difficult, is the takeaway. Now, a takeaway in a sense is similar to a hook. It's how that you leave the essay. You need to go beyond what you've written and consider broader issues, make new connections, or elaborate on the significance or the importance of your essay. Ways you can do this are reflect on the broader significance or the topic or other broad topics. So if your essay is about Shakespeare using allusion, you might want to write how important allusion can be. Discuss why it's difficult to arrive at a definitive answer to the question. So explain why you might, how you found the essay difficult, how there perhaps wasn't enough information, how you need to do extra research or something like that. You can also raise questions. I quite like this. Instead of saying, I found it difficult, you can actually say the next question to look at would be X, Y, and Z. Finally, you can make a prediction about what will happen in the future, or even make a suggestion to the reader. So let's have a look at a few examples. Here's the restated thesis and the summary for one essay. And I finish it off by writing the beauty of reading literature, where allusion is used so skillfully, is that it encourages the reader to go and explore more and read the reference text. If Shakespeare's allusion to Greco-Roman gods interests you, perhaps read Homer's epic poem, The Iliad. The essay was about allusion and how Shakespeare uses it, and I've made a suggestion to the reader that they should go and read The Iliad if they were interested in Shakespeare's allusion to Greco-Roman gods. That's a whole paragraph, that's a conclusion right there, those 3 parts. Let's see another example. This essay is about writing Romeo and Juliet in iambic pentameter. The takeaway: whilst iambic pentameter works well for romantic scenes and has a natural flow to it, it begs the question, what would be an appropriate meter and stress pattern for a much more violent and hateful play? I finished the essay with a question to do more research to. And finally, this thesis about the Lover's Sonnet, I've ended with a prediction. If Shakespeare were alive today, he might have had Romeo and Juliet act similarly, yet online. They might have completed each other's Instagram captions to show affection. I've made a prediction if Romeo and Juliet was a modern day play or a modern day story. That's it. Thank you for watching.